Welcome to the Mega Podcast, where we delve into the inspiring stories of entrepreneurs, motivational coaches, and business leaders. Join us as we hear about their journey to success and the challenges they faced along the way. We'll uncover their secrets to perseverance and determination and gain valuable insights into what it takes to reach your goals. The journey may not be beautiful, but it is always purposeful. So sit back, relax, and be ready to be inspired by those who have dared to dream big and make it a reality. Wepa! What's up, mi gente? Welcome to a brand new Mega Podcast, the A.M.P. And today we have an amazing guest. The man here is a frequent speaker and interviewee on technical issues impacting leading-edge techniques for addressing the existential threat of climate change and deterioration. He's also the co-founder of Team Lithium. I hope I said that right. We'll find out. A leading competitor in the X Prize for carbon removal, sponsored by the Musk Foundation. His motto is, let's not just survive, let's thrive. And I agree 100%. The one, the only, the man with the PhD, Mr. Steve McDaniel. How are you?
Well, Al, I quit polishing that apple, the PhD one, a long time ago. But thank you for mentioning it. But don't call me doctor, because I'm the wrong kind of doctor. Okay.
Oh, gotcha.
All right. But yeah, thanks for having me on the show, Al. I look forward to talking with you and your listeners.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on, Steve, and sharing in this knowledge of yours of a very important threat to all of humanity and Earth, of course. You know, with this global warming, and hopefully there are things that we could do to reverse that. And I'm going to dig into those questions momentarily. But first and foremost, Steve, I always love to know, what is your origin story? Where are you originally from, and where was your passion born?
Well, that's a good question, but it was a long time ago. I grew up on ranches and farms out in the oil fields of deep West Texas. In fact, my uncle was sheriff in Big Bend for 25 years. So I come from a ranching and a farming background. I knew really early on that breaking horses and herding cows around wasn't going to be my cup of tea. And I just had a penchant for science. Science has always been something that just I can't get enough of. I read about it, I do all that kind of stuff. And I knew that early on. So when I began school, I would take every science course I could. And my goal was to become an astronaut. All right.
Hey.
And that is, in a weird way, has transpired. And I'm not an astronaut, by the way, but I've got to do a lot of work in the space sciences area. And so, yeah, it's been fun. That's what happened. I just love science, man.
So when you say you love science, what was it that first piqued your interest in science? Was there a particular event that got you into the scientific journey in your life?
Yeah, actually, there was not maybe one event, but a series of events, and that is my PhD is in molecular biology and biochemistry, and so I've always had even though I like physics and chemistry and all those kinds of things, biology has been where I've looked at it, and I can remember as a kid, say tearing apart a corn seed and saying, how does this work? I don't get it. I mean, how do I get a
corn seed? You just killing me. You tore apart a corn seed. It's like me tearing up a VCR. That's what I used to tear up.
Okay.
Like, how does this work? But you're doing corn seed. You're going on way another level. My gosh.
Well, listen, you know this, Al, do you? That all biologists, all we really want to do is become chemists. And chemists really want to become physicists. Physicists want to become mathematicians, and all that mathematicians want to become is God. So I'm on the bottom of that chain of feeding lists.
Gotcha. You're on the 7th level right now.
Yeah, there you go.
Amazing. So, all right. So talk about then you getting educated then. So here you are. You're this kid from ranches, farming background and all, getting into the science. What was that education journey like for you? Was it accessible? Was it easy during that time to get into your field?
My where I came from, very humble. My folks didn't have a lot of money, and so I had to work all the way through school. But they, for whatever reason, they keep giving me just enough money and just enough scholarships to just keep me going and going and going. And so after I got my bachelor's degree in biology, I went to get a master's degree in genetics, and then I went on to get a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology, and then I went on to get a law degree. In between that, I worked in various scientific endeavors and various law endeavors. And in 2002, I was sitting in my law office. This was 2001. Well, I guess it was 2001. And this was right after 9/11. Mm-hmm. And in getting my PhD, I had worked on enzymes that will decontaminate chemical weapons. And so I got attacked, basically, by a bunch of newspaper reporters asking me, how can we prevent, chemical weapons from being used? Because everybody was scared to death of terrorism.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, I'm not sure. I mean, this enzyme's an enzyme. I'm not sure how to do that. But I guess if you could put it on a surface and that surface would remain active, then you can decontaminate these chemical weapons, because really what they are not gases, they're liquid droplets. Okay, they will. Okay, so that went out across 5, 6, 7 state region, and I got a call one day from a good friend of mine named Charlie Van Story. I had gotten drunk with Charlie Van Story so many times I can't count them. Okay, and Charlie said, McDaniel, I just saw you on TV. Is what you said, is that for real? I mean, really, can you build a paint like this? I said, I don't know, Charlie. He said, was it bullshit? Mainly. I said, yeah, probably pretty much. And so he said, well, if I collected some money together, would you start a company for me and see if you can do it? And I can't tell you, Al, I can't tell you why I said yes, but for whatever reason, I said yes.
Yes. Hey, listen, that's the secret of business. Is what? Yeah. Just say yes and figure it out.
Right.
I love that story. Oh my God! So you just jumped. I'm bullshitting. Can you do it? Why not?
I don't know.
I don't know. Let's go. Love it.
Yeah.
Wow. And how did you even come up with that type of idea to begin with?
Well, that's a good question. And if I have any kind of a talent at all, that talent is looking into nature and understanding how nature does things. Oh. And once I know how nature does things, then sometimes I can replicate it. For instance, if there was an enzyme in nature that broke down fats, greases, and oils, if I took that enzyme out of the plant or the bacterium and I isolated it and I put it into a coating, a paint or a coating, and it remained active after that, well, then I've taken this functionality out of nature and placed it in a coating. Ooh. And you might think, well, so what does that do? Well, it degreases things like your cell phone screen. It gets rid of greases and spots and things like that. And we have it. It's called degrease in my company here, Reactive. So then I would ask you, and I would ask your listeners, look around you wherever you are. Look at all this. Look at the ceiling, the floors, the table, the chairs, your clothing, your eyeglasses. There's none of those surfaces that aren't coated at some point in their manufacturing process.
You're absolutely right, because wood doesn't naturally gleam like this.
Nope, it's coated. And so if you can take advantage of that surface area, that vast amount of surface area with a functional coating, well, then you have something,
Interesting. But how do you figure out to keep the enzyme active, if you will, within now? Because you're introducing now other chemicals when you're creating this. So how do you? You're a genius, but I mean, you figure out how to keep this thing alive within.
No, not really. But some of what you're asking me is proprietary.
Gotcha.
But no, it's all right. But basically, you want to take an enzyme or a peptide or any other biological material, and you want to fool it. You want it to think that it's still in that plant leaf or in that bacterium or in that bug or in that algae. You want to make it think it is. And when you put it into the coating, and just to continue to think that's where it is. Okay. So you try to make it as lifelike as possible.
Interesting. Interesting. I love this. I love science too. And I'm sorry I get a little bit too excited and not trying to make you give away your secrets. I mean, this is why
Yeah.
you gotta, folks. I mean, if you're interested,
Well,
in
you
buying and
you you
checking
know
out
how
product.
that you know how to identify a geek, right? He
Oh
gets
yeah, bro.
ex, he gets excited about stuff.
Yeah, I get excited about paint and coatings. You look at
That-
me. I'm
that's
uber
it.
geek. Heck yeah.
I'm a
Let's make
geek.
it happen.
That's how we get excited.
Yeah, we do. But let's talk about that. All those things that you're doing, right? You're trying to improve the world. So let's get into it. Let's get into it right now because you are an authority of science, at least for me, from what I've been reading, and it comes to about global warming and the impact it's having on us. So, just for those that are maybe living in a bubble and don't tell the world, what is global warming and how is it impacting us at this very moment?
Yeah, well, global warming is a very complex result of a lot of different things happening at once. But there exists in nature a carbon cycle. It's how carbon moves through you and I into the soil, back up into the air as CO2. It's a carbon cycle. And before the Industrial Revolution, that carbon cycle did a masterful job of moving just the amount of carbon we needed to live and to breathe, and plants needed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, when the Industrial Revolution came to us back in the turn of the century, in the first 1900s or so, that shifted the balance tremendously because all of a sudden we started spewing lots and lots and lots of burnt things: wood, petroleum, coal, you name it, dumping all sorts of CO2 back in the atmosphere. And the Earth has tried, and has done a pretty good job of absorbing all that excess CO2. But when you hear people say we're getting to a tipping point, we're not going to be able to get past this if we don't do something, that's where the Earth can no longer buffer the effects of what we're doing. It can
Gotcha.
no
It can
longer,
no longer maintain the balance.
that's correct. That's right.
Jeez.
And when you think about, when you hear about people saying the reefs are going away, and that's because the ocean is becoming acidified. Well, why the ocean is becoming acidified is CO2, when it's dissolved in water, forms carbonic acid. And all that CO2 is just piling into the ocean, making it much more acidic, and those reefs are susceptible to acid.
Oh man. I wish humans knew this much earlier in our stages of history, so we could have prevented all this stuff. But hey, you know
we,
what?
well, you know what? That's a good thing. That's a good observation. Why didn't we?
Yeah.
You know, why didn't
I
we?
mean, why
Because,
didn't anyone think dumping things into the ocean or burning consistently
yeah,
things that are maybe not natural and throwing it in the air? How could you
yeah,
not think? Or blowing up atomic bombs in the desert? If the Earth goes round and the atmosphere stays still, and you wonder why cancer increases because that cloud still exists there. Come on.
you
For
know
me,
why?
this is basic stuff.
Why we? And I'll tell one on myself. In 2018, the United Nations had a panel of illustrious scientists who then did recognize it. I mean, it's not, they didn't just jump on them that day,
Yeah.
okay, but they've been recognizing it for some time, and they put out a report. And when this panel put out this report in 2018, I don't know about you guys, but it got my attention because it basically said what I just said a while ago. We're quickly getting to a tipping point that we will not be able to return from. And honestly, my wife will tell you, I'm a father of children, and I was practically catatonic. I mean, as a father, you do everything you can to keep your children, your grandchildren safe. Get them food. You got to make sure they're safe, drive seatbelts, and do all this kinds of stuff to keep them safe. But here was something that I couldn't do one damn thing about.
Doesn't that suck? You can't protect your family because this is beyond all of us. Because it's going to take a village, or rather, a whole village
Well,
of Earth to correct this.
well, no, you're right. It is going to take it. We call it a consortium, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But since what I know, the only thing I know, my tools are natural functional paints. I asked myself the question: can I make a paint that will absorb and sequester carbon dioxide? And Beth and I, that's my wife Beth, and I said, well, and we had a company, Reactive Surfaces, doing this. we decided to take a lot of the resources of reactive surfaces and apply them to this problem. And by the end of 2018, I have an amazing team of scientists in my labs. We had it. We had it. We had built the coating. In the coating, coating is again, you shouldn't be surprised if you go hiking out. If you go hiking along the seashore or in a forest or up in the mountains, you constantly see these splashes of color. You'll see an orange or a green or a gray or whatever. Well, those are lichen. They're a particular kind of lichen. Lichen, yeah. And so when you mispronounced it a little bit, but the team that we have at the X Prize is called Team Lichen. Well, there's a reason for that. Because lichen are as paint-like as you can possibly imagine of a living organism. What they are fungi that have in the very middle of them algae that grow in the middle of them. The algae are doing a great job of cycling the carbon in and out. The fungi give it a place to live, so it's not impacted by the UV rays, etc. And it spreads all over the place. And so that's what gave us the motivation and really told us how to do it. And how to put the algae in a coating.
I dig it. Going back to what you stated about observing nature and then applying it. Wow.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, Steve. Amazing. So you're telling me we can't as humans plant more trees and go ahead and resolve it? It's not that easy.
I wish it was, Al. I truly do. And I admire. I don't think of people who are doing other technologies or other businesses as competitors in this particular endeavor. They're my colleagues. So
yes.
To my colleagues, I wish them the best of luck. I want them to, if they think it by growing a bunch of trees that's going to do it, I don't. But if you think that's going to do it, well then, yay for you. By all means, go do it. Okay. If you're like some of these big companies that are building these huge facilities that have these big fans and it takes all that, pushes it down into water and pushes it down the ground a mile deep. If you think that's going to do it, good for you. Go do it. Okay. But I know for a fact that there is some place that it is being done. And we just talked about it. The carbon cycle. The algae, the lichen, spread over vast amounts of surface area. It's doing a very good job of it. So why reinvent the wheel? Let's just do more of that.
And how safe is this algae? Because it's algae. People get scared. It's a scientific word. This is going to harm me. So is it harmless to humans?
Well, I mean, you go into the local health store, and you can buy all sorts of algae, spirulina, all sorts of to put in a smoothie and eat it. Okay, so there are algae that are fine that you don't have to worry about. Now there are some. So for instance, you'll hear about an algal bloom that killed a bunch of fish. Okay, and those algae are bad. Okay, so you got to know what you're going to use, right? So you use the kind of algae and what I'm doing that you literally can put in your smoothie and drink.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. So it's edible too. Folks, we're not telling you to eat paint either, right?
Well, you know something funny, Al? The paint that I decided to build is not made out of the petroleum like normal paint, okay? Like polyurethane. Really? No, we use a natural polymer called alginate. And it is derived from algae, as you might suspect. It's called alginate, and some other polymers that we get from nature. Those alginate, if you had a muffin for breakfast this morning, you probably ate some alginate. Alginate is used to make bread and muffins. They're real fluffy and moist.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I probably had tons this morning then.
You probably had.
And I'm alive, folks.
And you can eat this paint, Al.
But you're referring to your colleagues, right? And saying, hey, good on them if they believe. So what do you say when someone says scientists can't even agree that climate change is happening?
Well, okay, so I probably can go out into the world of science and find some person that will have a position, a scientific position that is contrary to absolutely everybody else on the planet. I can probably find that person. And you know what? I would say that person will prove it. Prove it. Let's do this. Let's do the science. Prove what you say. That there's not an excess of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and that's not causing the oceans to. So prove it. All right. And what you'll find if you dig just a little deeper is it's exactly like what I said. There's one guy, two guys, three guys, voices in the wilderness, okay, who disagree with everybody. But the vast, vast majority of scientists on this planet say, oh, yeah, it's happening and it's happening fast. Mm. And I'm one of them. And I'm one of them. I test it every day.
I mean, but we see it in life where we see these changes and, winter's feeling weird. And I mean, I was in New York all winter. It felt like spring the whole winter. All right, this is not winter.
But you're making a common mistake that we all do. There's a difference between climate and climate change and weather.
Really? Okay.
Those are not the same thing.
So that's not interrelated. So when they're saying there's been weather changes here, it doesn't correlate with the climate change at all?
It does, but just because I have a snowball in my hand, do you remember the congressman who brought a snowball into the Congress and he held it, and with that snowball denied climate change, is that that anecdotal fact that every once in a while in Arizona you're going to have a snowstorm doesn't change the vast trajectory.
Understand.
Of what we're looking. You have to look at. Let's see. The movie what's the island that has the dinosaurs on it?
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, Jurassic Park. And Jeff Goldblum's character was brought onto the island because he was a theorist who specialized in chaos. And the guy who ran the island wanted him to come on board and basically say, there is absolutely no possible way any of these dinosaurs could escape this island. No way whatsoever. Absolutely. And Jeff Goldblum's answer to the guy is, well, I can't say that. And why? He said, why not? He said, do you know how much money we spend on weather satellites each year? And he came up a figure, I can't remember, $18 billion. Mm-hmm. He said, do you know how many times we get it wrong?
Yes, agree.
So, okay. So yeah, it's a statistical
100.
thing.
100. All right. So here, I know you were mentioning carbon a lot, and all. So just for clarification's sake, what's the difference between carbon capture, carbon storage, and carbon removal?
Yeah. Well, carbon removal, I would say, I mean, those are all terms that are getting batted around everywhere, but carbon removal is sort of the global term. We all want to remove carbon, okay? You may be an industrial plant pushing out a lot of carbon dioxide out to your smokestack, and you want to you remove the carbon in that smoke. Or you may be someone who's very concerned with the ocean, and you want to remove that CO2, okay? But removal can be done in a whole lot of different ways. Capture is something that means you have a hold of the carbon you put your hands on for a while. There's a period of time that you control where it is. You control whether it be in a gas or a liquid form or put into a solid of some sort. You control it, okay? And what the goal here is, now, right, remember we put excess carbon dioxide up there, a lot of carbon up there that shouldn't be up there. We don't want to merely grab hold of that carbon that's being caused by us. We want to, what we call, durably sequester it. We want to take it and put it away somewhere that it will stay for at least 100 years, preferably much longer.
Gotcha.
So you've got...
Is that the lifespan of carbon, 100, or like what's the lifespan of carbon itself before it really could dissipate into nothingness, if at all?
Carbon, the element, is basically infinite. I mean,
it's immortal. Yeah. Let's go comic book talk.
Yeah.
Immortal substance.
Yeah. To the extent that your carbon in your body is immortal, you're immortal, dude. Okay. So.
Hey.
Okay. Yeah, so carbon itself, of course, is a molecule that it does break down. In fact, that's how we test for artifacts to see how old something is. Okay. Carbon-14 dating, you've heard about that. We look at radioactive forms of carbon and are able to see and measure how long that carbon has been in that teapot or that bone or that tooth. Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Wow, you hear this, folks? Science is insane, son. Love it, love it. All right, so what can the average person or even a small business, for example, do right now to minimize that footprint that's affecting us?
I'm sorry, but I'm going to give you some bad news.
Uh-oh.
All right. Please do continue to recycle. Please do buy electric cars. Please do try to use as little petroleum products as you can. All those kinds of things that you're doing, taking your plastics out, recycling, all those things that you're doing are fantastic for other reasons. But they will have very, very little to do with pulling CO2 out of the air. Very, very little. We're stuck, whether we like it or not, of coming up with systems that literally and actively, directly take CO2 out of the air. Now, if you want me to give you a true, what I think everyone should do, remember, we don't want to just survive. We want to thrive.
Yes.
So if every one of your listeners, if every single one of us gets the vision in our heads collectively that here's what thriving means, you know, all the birds, all the bugs, everything that we need as a human being in our biosphere not only survives but thrives.
Yes.
If you can get that vision, if you could help me, just take that vision and spread it out, okay? Just spread it everywhere and make sure. And by that vision, I mean think about it every dadgum day. When you wake up in the morning, put it right in the windshield of your car and think about it. And what happens, it's nothing magical. What happens is you rub elbows with a lot of people, they get infected with the vision, and others. Some of them are congressmen, some of them are movers and shakers, and they get the vision. Okay? If enough of us have that vision, it's my belief that we will get to the point where we can thrive. I will tell you one more. I can tell you one more thing. I won't stop until they bury me on this. Okay? I'm not going to stop. And I'm an old guy. So
Well, look, you
I'm
don't
not
look
going to.
old, brother. You got the energy, you got that spirit and passion. So I see you're gonna be fighting for us for a very long time. I see it.
I intend to. But what I was going to say, Al, is this: is that me and my colleagues, defined like I said a while ago, are making headway. Don't think we're not. It's easy to listen to the news and get dire and grim news about it all, and there is that news, okay? But there's also a bunch of people working on this, a lot of people. I have experts that work for me that are the best algae experts in the world.
Mm,
They believe it. Okay,
wonderful.
we just published an article in the Journal of Carbon Dioxide Utilization. It's an exhaustive article. I'm not saying you should read it, okay, but but if you wanted to read it and understand absolutely everything we're doing, I think you'd be quite impressed. I think you'd be impressed with the people, the quality of the people that are coming onto our program. So if your listeners can do that one for me, that's solid. And that just keep that vision every single day. It will help more than you know.
So I gotta ask, Steve, since you're building a team of the best to make sure that we thrive, what if someone out there is feeling passionate, and is a believer in this as well, and is out there fighting the fight? Are you guys looking to add members to the team? And if so, how can they even communicate and reach out, to share with you?
Um, uh, we just started this effort in 2018. Okay, and so I know we've been going at it for a few years. But to do these kinds of things, these massive scales of engineering, takes a while. Okay, and you have to use techniques and equipment and people's brains that really know about it. Now, what can the average guy or lady do? Here pretty soon, my company will be working with people who will offer a personal offset device. This built with the same thing. We build these things in modules, just like bricks when you're. I mean, like just like toy blocks that you played with when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Well, you can see what we're using if you go to any dock around the world. You'll see these plastic boxes and steel cages stacked up everywhere, all over the place. They're white. They
Okay.
have something in them, and they're called intermediate bulk cargo containers. They're a meter cubed. They hold a
Really?
thousand. They hold 1,000 liters. Okay, something like 256 gallons. We're recycling and putting our modules, putting everything I'm telling you about the paint, the algae, etc., inside those modules, and we're just stacking them up and getting the CO2 like that. All right, but
Wow.
you and I and every person on this earth, on average, okay, that's average. Actually, you and I, as U.S. citizens, are responsible for like 16 tons per year of
Jeez.
16 tons.
Are we the most in the
Oh
world?
yeah, yeah, oh, yeah.
Wow.
That we us and China and a couple other places. But at any rate, is that that 16 actually, if you divide it out across all the people on the planet, because there's a lot of people that don't put any CO2 into the atmosphere, it's on average about 4 tons each year. Each one of us is responsible for. When we finish building these units, they will pull down 4 tons each
Oh,
year,
wow.
and
Wow.
you can put them in your backyard.
No way.
Well, that's what I'm aiming at.
Well, let's make it happen because I want to get a house tune, and so I'll put one of these units in my backyard to help out. Heck yeah.
Well,
Let's
yeah, and
go, world.
it won't be that expensive, and they'll probably be given away. And your only job will be to maintain them. Like you're
Oh, man.
maintaining your poinsettia in your garden.
Let's make it
Uh,
happen, brother. I love this. I love this. You're out there on a real mission. You're the real Captain Planet. I'm about to buy you a suit and paint you blue. I'm digging it, Steve. Man, I'm digging it. I love that, folks. Even before we got on, I do a comic based podcast, and he's telling me he's geeking this on that side too. Steve is a real deal dude right here, a great dude, a geek of all kinds, but actually on a mission to be a real superhero to the earth and help as best as he can. So we appreciate you, Steve, for taking this mission. I mean, for real.
I'm not a superhero, but I promise you, I can be as tenacious as a bulldog. Okay, I can.
The Batman of the environment. That's what it is. All right, let's get it done.
That
You are a hero, bro. Come on, man. Don't
no,
be so humble, man. You're doing great things,
no.
and what you're doing to the world is great. You know what I mean? You're helping. You're doing more than most people do nowadays. So I just want to say thank you, just as a
Yep,
human
sure.
living on Earth. Thank
Well,
you.
thank my team. You bet. That's
And the
great.
team. Absolutely. So, will you be speaking anywhere? Because I know you're a highly sought after speaker and people want to be hearing what you're sharing. Are you going to be speaking anywhere where someone could see you and see you in person? Do you have any books out? You know what I mean? And what's up with the website? What are we getting at reactorsurfaces.com?
Right. So, where you can see me speaking, if you wish, in May, I don't know the exact date, but I will be back at the National Press Club giving a speech there to a number of different countries about how you actually build these things. So you could come and listen to that. I promise not to geek out too much. I promise. I don't know if can make that promise, but I'll try. You know what Einstein said, right? He said, "Look, you have a technology. Yeah, well, good for you. If you can't explain that technology fairly well to a average and averagely intelligent eighth grader, then you don't understand it yourself."
Oh,
So I
oof.
keep my talks at the eighth grade level, okay? Because there are things I don't understand, and yeah, but you just keep it at the eighth grade level.
That's a
Yeah,
solid truth, though. It's true. Not all of us are going to be able to grasp these high end things. And thank you, though. I appreciate that. And for being honest. That's what we need in the world, more honest people, folks. And I've been sharing the website, reactorservices.com/technology. Please take a look at the website, find out what's going on, read into this, a lot of exciting stuff going on here. Do you do any social media or is it just strictly the website?
well, we've been doing a lot of these podcasts, and thank you for having us. My wife also does them, and
Oh,
we
I
are.
wanted to ask you, wait, your lady, is she also a scientist and how you guys met? What's the story of that romance and how your brains got connected to help save the world together?
Well, you probably are too young to know the singer Jackson Brown, but Jackson Brown wrote a song called "Lawyers in Love," and it's pretty funny actually when you listen to the song. Well, both Beth and I are lawyers, and that's how we met.
Ah, okay. Were you on
She need
opposite ends arguing, prosecution and defense, or
no,
same team?
no. Our arguments are about as boring as you could possibly imagine because it has to be logical and it has to be stated in a certain way and all this kinds of stuff. We don't argue very much at all. But she needed a litigator, someone who knew how to litigate trade secret misappropriation cases. Well, that's my specialty. So she hired me, and that's how we met.
Awesome. Check that out. So shout out to your wifey too, helping you on this mission and bringing this stuff. So that's what I want to know, because you mentioned her several times. So obviously she's a very important person in your life. You mentioned her this
very
time,
important. Bro. Yes.
Awesome. So salute to Miss McDaniel out there. Yo, rock out. Amazing. But thank you again, folks. Please, check out the website, support, folks like Steve and his team that are definitely trying to have us thrive and survive in this wonderful planet of ours. You know what I mean? And hopefully we could add one of these cubes into our own backyards sometime soon and be part of this journey to help heal the earth. So with that, thank you, Steve, so much again for your time. I appreciate you. Everybody, thank you for tuning in and listening. Please make sure to follow the channel, subscribe, turn on notifications. And as I said, if you love geek stuff too, check me out over at CommonCrusaders.com and also UndercoverCapes.com, where we cover all things pop culture. Hasta la próxima, mi gente. You know what it is. Keep doing what you do. Wepa! And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Al-Mega Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed listening to the insights and stories from our guests. Remember, success is a journey, not a destination. And every step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to your goals. Don't give up on your dreams and keep pushing forward. Until next time, thank you for tuning in and stay motivated.